We are so excited about this lesson.
What do you learn by going on 1,500 listing appointments?
Everything.
Yeah. And by the way, what can you learn when you teach everybody what you learned going on 1,500 listing appointments and they go on 15 million listing appointments?
Right.
We've learned a lot. And especially we've learned that people don't care what you know
until they know that you care.
And caring about what others care about is
what caring is all about. Caring about is all about. Yes, that's right.
So today we're going to show you how to get people to list with you before it's even time to get people to list with you. The Wickman way, using this tool called the Client Qualifier.
If you went to a Floyd Wickman class, you learned this tool. It may have had a different name or something when you learned it, but the idea behind the tool is so darn powerful. You know, if you take a look at our core values, what is one of our most important core values? To always make my client's number one goal.
My number one.
Right. Well, how do you do that? I mean, first of all, in order for you to do that, you got to understand what their number one goal even is. And how do you discover that? It's this tool, the Client Qualifier. If you have fallen out of the habit of using it, our goal is that as of today, you implement this immediately on every appointment you go on. If this is the first time you've ever heard of it, oh, we are so happy for you, because you are going to use this tool in addition to the POCA that you already received in an earlier lesson,
right,
to really listen to your client.
So going back just to one step, what's the purpose of the POCA?
That's take control.
Yeah, to set the table, so to speak, to get them to give you permission to follow an agenda. And the first item on the agenda is I want to ask you some questions so I get a clear picture of what's important to you in the sale of your home.
And whether or not I can even help you achieve those goals. Make sense?
That's even before you get up and look at the house. You know what are most agents doing these days? If they even go over there, they walk in the door and say, show me around the house. Yeah. And then they hit them with the price and say, what do you think? But you can do better than that. You get them to the kitchen table after you ring the bell, smile, tell them a compliment, take the kitchen table, break the ice, and then you do your preview of coming attractions. And now we take out the Client Qualifier.
That's right. And the Client Qualifier has some objectives. So I wrote them down so that I could say them to you clearly. And this is my way of expressing what Floyd taught us. Here's the first one. We always start with easy questions. So the first beginning questions, it's a conversation. It's you understanding their goals and their objectives and things like that. But the last question, that's the scary hard question. Just wait till you hear it. It's the most important question of all. It's the reason we ask all the other ones.
But you can't start with it,
right?
Because it'll frighten people, including you. That's why Floyd called it using the guts gauge, to gauge what guts it takes you to ask the question and how much guts it takes them to answer the question. That's why we start with the easy ones, the onesies and twosies on the guts gauge. It also breaks the ice and gets them to know you a little bit and like you and trust you because you're listening to them.
Yeah.
What do people love to do? Talk about themselves, right? And this is a way that you can get that conversation going.
Number two, we want you to print this tool up and bring it with you on the appointments, like a pre-printed form. Now, it could either be a slide or it could be a sheet of paper with space for you to write handwritten notes, or if you've got a tablet or some kind of tool like that, great. If you desire to not type these questions that we're about to read to you and say to you and teach you, then that's okay. Just email mike@floydwickman.com or mary@floydwickman.com and we'll send you the pre-typed tool for you to use. But we want you to bring it with you to the house, and you're going to actually ask these questions in this order and then record their answers.
Now, there's probably no such thing as a bad way to use this tool, unless you don't use it at all.
Right.
But there is good, better, and best. Good might be hand it to them and ask them to fill it out.
Okay.
But we can do better than that. Better might be just to read the question and listen to their answers. But the best way, the way that Floyd taught us, is to use every question on this list as a conversation starter. if you remember back to that pie chart we showed you of the time frames each of the 4 steps of a listing presentation take, this is step 2. It's the step that takes the most time if you let it. Unfortunately, it's the step that most agents either rush through or skip altogether. So what Floyd is saying is sit down with them at the kitchen table, take control, and then take out your questions and really do a deep dive into them, their plans, their hopes and dreams and wishes and expectations and experience. Get to know them and really show them that you care about what they care about.
So the question that you're going to write down or that you're going to have printed with you is the springboard for additional questions. Now, you might not need to go a deep dive into every single one, but you maybe did that over the phone. You talked about why they were moving or whatever. However, you didn't hear from the other party if there's more than one decision maker. So you want to direct those questions to that other party. So it's whoopin'. Okay. And then finally, I got 2 more thoughts. The fourth thought was that if they don't have, you're on the hunt for problems. You're on the hunt for mistakes that they might make in the future. If they don't have a problem, they don't need you. So you are a problem solver. So you got to probe until you understand, oh my gosh, if you make that mistake, it could hurt you. Now, you don't necessarily say that right now, but you need to make sure that that's where you're driving the bus to. And then finally, make sure you don't go down any rabbit holes. So we don't want to get you off track and have you talking for an hour and a half about the wrong thing. We're not solving the problem right now. We're only discovering it. And as I've taught for many years, once you discover the problem, here it is right here. Now you turn around, you put it in your back pocket for later on, and during your presentation or your close, you will be solving that problem. So just because you discover the problem now does not mean that you solve it. In fact, that's the worst thing you could do. All you're doing now is listening, probe, listening more. Okay?
If you think in terms of a seesaw, like back on the playground in elementary school, and on one side of the seesaw is the commission that you charge. And on the other side, those are the problems. If you can't find any problems, which weighs more, the commission or the problems? That's right, the commission. We charge too much if we're not solving and preventing problems that are going to
cost them money potentially, or time.
Right. So that's when we get toward the end and we start stacking up those problems with the right questions. Now the commission looks like we're justifying it. It looks like we don't even charge enough because we're going to prevent them from a lot of heartache and mistakes.
Right.
So let's get on with some of the questions. Now, the way I like to do this is I like to set the questions aside so I can see them and they can see them. And they know, oh, we're going through this list of questions. And I put the pen down because I like to make eye contact while we're conversing. And then when it's time to write a summary of what they told me, maybe a point or two, I like to look at them and say, that sounds important. Let me make a note of that and pick the pen up and write down and then put the pen back down. So I'm paying undivided attention to them and their body language and their voice inflection and facial expressions.
Is this where I tell them that I do it differently?
Yeah. Well, there's no such thing as a bad way. Do it the way you're comfortable with and that you get results with. Like I said, this is the result of Floyd's 1,500 listing appointments and then the millions that our students have gone on using this tool. And
I am, now, Michael and I, have you already figured out we have different personalities? So you got to use your personality. I don't ever put that pen down. I'm writing and I'm looking up at them and I'm writing and I'm probing. Oh my gosh, what's your sister's name? And I'm writing it down. So I capture all of that by looking up and down and up and down and up and down. Maybe it drives some people crazy. They're going to go list with Michael. So you figure out how you want to use it, but bring the typed questions with you.
Now, the real easy ones are what they call situation questions. What's the situation? Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? When do you want to be there? Who's helping you where at the other end? Just to get a feel for the lay of the land. What's their situation? What are they trying to accomplish here in the sale? What kind of move are they making?
So if you type those questions, it will be, why are you moving? When do you want to be there? Who else is involved in making the decision to go forward? And then, but the probing is what's going to happen. Oh my gosh, you're moving to Alaska? Oh, how do you feel about that? Oh, wow, why would you choose that? Oh my gosh, you're a welder. My grandfather was a welder. So that's the way I do that. That's a conversation that draws out motivation and intent. But it doesn't have to take 20 minutes.
And builds rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we're going to start getting into a little bit gutsier questions to ask, and they will have to do with money. And that's a question like, how much cash do you need from the sale to make moving possible? How about make moving comfortable, to help you go through with your plans? How much cash are you going to need? And that can always be followed with, gee, how did you come up with your price? How familiar are you with prices in the area recently? Floyd always said, that's really a 3 on the guts gauge. How did you come up with your price? But if you want to make it a 4, change your facial expression and voice inflection. How'd you come up with your price?
Or,
well, don't do that. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
How did you happen to come up with that?
Right.
Right. So I'm already revealing a little bit. Did I say you can't get it? No, I haven't even looked around the house yet. That's the reason that you don't look at the house before you ask the questions.
And you might even ask them, what did you like about this house when you bought it? And since then, what major improvements have you made?
That's a really important question, because every once in a while when we're on a listing appointment, we discover that people have over improved. Yeah. You know, we put a pool in for $85,000 in our $300,000 neighborhood. We've added a $200,000 kitchen in our $300,000. Are you getting the idea here? So over improvements is the reason we ask that. What kind of major improvements have you made? Yeah. Well, we changed the light bulbs a couple of times. Okay, I just meant, have you added like a room or anything? Oh, no, we haven't done that. Okay, move on. But if they have done some improvements, you might ask, oh, I can't wait. I mean, I know I'm sitting in your kitchen. I can't wait to really study and analyze. Just out of curiosity, how long ago did you do those improvements? Oh, and who did the work for you? I see. Just out of curiosity, how much did you end up spending to make that kitchen remodel? Oh, wow. When you did that, were you expecting that you would get all of that money back out? What? You don't think we can? Well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't even written down all the details about the kitchen yet, but I guess I'm just kind of curious. Were you thinking you would get that money back? Well, yes, we certainly did. Okay. Well, I know how important every single dime is to you, so I'm going to be paying a lot of attention when we look through the house. But thanks for letting me know. Let's go to the next. Oh, unless there's another major improvement that I missed. Oh, solar panels. Okay, so you see, but so don't go down a rabbit hole here. But I'm planting the seeds that you might not get what you thought you were going to get. I don't know yet. I haven't looked. Okay.
Part of this might be educational as well. You know, you want to educate them about the difference between a cosmetic improvement, something you do to enjoy the home, and an actual major improvement, something that will increase the value specifically.
Oh, that's a good point. Someone tells you, well, we put a new roof on. Well, that's good. How long ago?
Improvement, yeah.
Okay. So in real estate, we call that a maintenance item. There was a roof there before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought so. Yeah. So, you know, that might not add to the value, but it certainly will add to the saleability. I'm glad you mentioned it. Educational.
You might also want to ask them at this point, how do you feel about owner financing? Because that's going to affect the price. You know, some people, they want to get 50% more than market value. And there's really only one way. Well, there's two ways. Lightning could strike, but really the only way is if they finance the sale themselves and over time, you know, rake in that much from the sale through the payments and owner financing. But we've done the financial questions, and now we're going to get into the last 4 questions of your client qualifier's dozen questions. And 9, 10, 11, and 12 is when we ratchet up the guts gauge.
Yeah, they're going to be a little scarier. Get ready to write them down.
Question 9 is, who else are you talking with about the sale of your home?
Why would you even bring that up? Aren't you giving them an excuse?
Don't put that
Oh
in
my
their head.
gosh.
Yeah, well, guess what? If they're thinking of selling, they're talking to people. If it's not other real estate agents, it's probably their neighbors or their friends or their family, or for sure each other. They are talking to people about the sale.
And a lot of times, if you read an article, it will tell you you should interview 2 or 3 agents. So some people feel a real commitment to having to do that. What we're trying to do is uncover, who are you competing with? So they say, you ask that question and let's just role play that. I say, well, yeah, of course we're talking to a couple other realtors.
Oh, how'd you happen to pick them?
XYZ has a big billboard along the highway.
Okay, so they weren't referred to you like I was.
The one of them was that we were talking to 2, Michael.
Oh, okay.
And the other one, my neighbor, I guess when her mom died or something, she used them.
Great. When are you going to talk to them?
We have an appointment this weekend coming up with the first one, and then the following Monday, a week from now, I guess, with the second one.
Super. I love competition. So I'm just curious if you've talked to those 2 agents and you still think I'm the best one, are you saying you'd list with me?
Well, yeah, that's why we're going to talk to all 3 to make sure we get the right person.
What kind of criteria are you going to use to judge? Is it whoever lowers their commission the most or bids the highest with the price, or what are you looking at?
I don't know. I guess.
Do you have a method of comparison that you're going to use, or is it just going to be kind of?
Well, we're just going to listen to all 3, and then I think we'll kind of know.
Okay. When do you think you'll have your decision made?
By the last interview.
Great. Sounds good. I have a couple more questions if it's okay.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Now I've uncovered who I'm up against and what I might be able to do toward the end to prove to them that they don't need to interview other people. NAR says sellers list 86% of the time with the first agent they interview. So at least you've uncovered this without being ambushed by it at the very end of your presentation.
Isn't this the greatest tool ever? That's what you want. Remember how I said at the beginning, find the problem, tuck it in your back pocket. What's the problem? They could potentially list with the wrong company because someone slick comes over, or someone lies to them about the value, or someone that doesn't have the marketing tools and services that but is a real nice personality because they've also got kids the same age or whatever. And they could potentially be costing themselves thousands of dollars. Is it time to tell them that yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Find the problem, tuck it in your back pocket. Everyone got it?
Now we're going to question 10. What's important to you? What's most, not you, the agent, but them. What's most important to them? And it's one of 3 things. It's probably all 3, but it's certainly one of the 3 is paramount to them. It's either the price they get or the time it takes to sell or the convenience or inconvenience they have to go through. Now, if you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, it's always price. There are companies that have made millions and millions of dollars by lowball offers, wholesale offers to people who just want it over with.
I don't want to clean. I don't want to have showings.
Check. I don't want showings, none of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, they're willing to sacrifice money in order to get it done easily. Or they're willing to sacrifice money in order to get it over with quick, get it done fast. Maybe they've got a time deadline. So the way you ask the question is by prefacing it by saying, not everybody's always looking for the highest price. Sometimes timing is really what's most important to them, or they just want to get it over with and they don't want to be hassled or inconvenienced. So if you could only have one of those 3, which would be the most important thing to you? Would it be pricing or timing or convenience?
So then they answer. And let's say they say price. Now your follow-up question would be, all right, so if it took a little longer to get you the amount that you want, you'd be willing to wait for that? Well, much longer do you think? Well, I mean, obviously it depends on what the number is, right? But let's say let's say it was 4 months. Oh, geez, 4 months. Well, we can't wait 4 months. Okay, so we want to get as much as we can, but are you telling me that the timing, I mean, you've got to be in Alaska within 60 days. So are you saying, hey, we don't want to, but if we have to take less, we definitely need to be out of this house within 60 days. Have I got that right? So sometimes you got to really, do you see how I'm kind of confirming what I think I heard? Mm-hmm. I don't care what they choose. I just need to know what they choose, right? Like I can sell this house tomorrow, can't I? I mean, let's sell it for 20% of its full value. Could I have an offer by tomorrow? I don't care what's going on in the market. I don't care what the rate is. 20% of full market value, I'll have an offer for you to buy tomorrow, right? Now, I'm not saying you say that. Agent, I want you thinking that way, that timing is an issue, then there's the pricing, and then there's the whole thing about who's handling all the details and how much does this drag on and how inconvenient it will be. Convenience is usually the least of the three. It's almost always either price or time, and it's almost always answered price until you do a little digging, at which time you might find out it's really timing. And you want them to get on board with that, okay?
Now, question 11, before we get to the big kahuna, number 12, question 11, there's a concept behind it, and I want you to remember this concept. It's called fear of loss is a greater motivator than opportunity to gain. So we're going to ask a pretty direct question, and that's this. What would it do to your plans if you couldn't sell?
Okay, hold on. You need to push pause and write down both of those sentences. Fear of loss is a greater motivator than opportunity to gain. Push pause and write it down. Opportunity to gain is a motivator. It causes people to take action. Well, what we want is we want them to take action now, not later, not with someone else. And that's why we're going to use fear of loss. And you have already heard this in a bunch of different ways. When we taught you the POCA, we used fear of loss so that they didn't end up on the expired list or on the fall through list. Right. Remember? So I think we might have even covered that sentence. I don't know that that means you mastered it or are thinking that way. Fear of loss is a greater motivator than opportunity to gain.
So what would it do to your plans if you couldn't sell? Well, what do you mean? You don't think we can sell it? Well, gee, I don't know. I haven't actually seen the house yet. See, that's why we ask the questions before we look at the house, because you can ask tougher questions if you haven't seen it.
Okay, so did you pause and write down that sentence? What would happen to your plans if the house did not sell? So push pause, write it down. Because if you can just capture that, look back at your notes and say, okay, I'm going to ask this question this way.
And maybe they're being transferred. They've got a job in another city. And if the house doesn't sell, they've got a tough decision to make. Turn down the job? No. Leave an unsold vacant home behind? Split the family up? What kind of problems would it create if it didn't sell? And how much would those problems cost? That's what you want to follow up that question with. What kind of problems would it create and how much would they cost? And the more you can stack those problems on the one side of the seesaw, the less that commission starts to weigh. Are you with me?
Good point.
Good. So we're all wrapping up at the end when you're saying, so it looks like if we're going to join forces, my first job would be to make sure you get enough from the sale to make this move possible, maybe even comfortable. And at the same time, get it done in the time frame that makes it work for you without a lot of the hassle so that you avoid those problems you just talked about. Is that the situation here?
Yeah, a little tie-down question at the end. Do I understand that correctly? Are we on the same page here? Is that the situation here? So a little tie-down question.
And now
The big
We're
one.
moving to question 12.
The reason we asked the other 11.
And it's not that difficult to ask. Mary has a really gentle way of asking this question. I love the way you word this. I mean, word it the way you want to word it. I'll give you Floyd's words.
Right.
But he said, question 12 is, what would it take for you to list with me tonight? Don't have a heart attack. That is what we need to know. You know, what would it take? But how do you ask it?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I've got a little piece of paper here. I always say, don't you be chicken. If you've got that paper, even if you're doing this, just read the question. So my last question is, what would it take? Don't be chicken. Ask the question. A little softer way of saying it might be something like this. You know, what would you have to see and hear tonight from me to feel comfortable going ahead and getting the ball rolling tonight? Oh, we told you we're not going to do anything till we interview those other 2 agents. Right. I remember that. I guess what I'm asking, because they didn't answer my question, so I'm going to ask it again.
Yeah.
By the way, if they don't answer your question, you should ask it again because you're strong. I guess what I mean by that is, what would I have to say tonight where you said, you know what, we were going to interview all 3 people, all 3 companies, but it's clear we got the right person and the right company sitting in front of us right now. Hey, Mary, as long as you're willing to call and cancel those appointments, we'll go ahead.
One of 3 things is going to happen when you ask this question. One is they're going to put a stop to everything. They're going to say, listen, don't push. We already told you we're going to talk to some other people. We already told you we're not going to sign anything
Look
tonight.
at my head. You know what, Michael? And that's just fine. The last thing I'd ever want you to do is make a decision and feel pressure doing it. It's not how I run my business.
They're going to say something that's a signal to you that now is not the time to close for the listing. Now is not the time they should even come on the market. Maybe they're not even a potential client for you. Maybe you've discovered, and that's the beauty of this 4-step process. Maybe you've discovered these people, I just don't want to work with them. You don't go on listing appointments to see if you can get the listing. You go there to see if you want it. And maybe you just don't want it. That's the second thing that's going to happen. You'll get that signal.
Should I tell the Elizabeth story?
Do we have time?
Well, yeah, sitting with Elizabeth, who clearly does not want to sell the house, who would really like to hold on to her house. And though she called me over to list the house, I've had enough. I can't stand it anymore. And we got a divorce situation. She's not ready yet. I remember sitting back and saying, you know, Elizabeth, you love your house, and I don't think you're ready yet. Now, and she's like, you're right, I'm not, right? Okay, well, listen, the worst thing I could do then is give her a price, because I don't know what's going to happen to the value of her home by the time she is ready.
Yeah,
I'll stay in touch with her. Right.
It doesn't even matter.
So it's time for me to go home. I mean, I can hug her and finish my cup of coffee or whatever, but I'm not going to waste more time here with a person that's not going to sign. Does that make sense to you? So that's the second one. Sometimes you stand up and you leave. You don't like them. The kids are running around crazy. Their teenager just came in smelling like dope. You know, there's issues going on. It's time for you to leave. And sometimes that happens about now. So now it's the perfect time for you to break this appointment in half and say, next time we get together, all we'll have to do is kind of recap. Yep. Check for any changes, and then you'll be ready for the price when there's a little less chaos. I'm happy to do that. Let's set up that appointment now. Ooh, that's another point. Yeah. Always, if you leave without the listing, schedule the next time you are going to get together so that you don't have to play telephone tag or they ghost you via text instead of answering you. When you're sitting right there at the kitchen table, take out your calendar and book the next appointment. All right. And the third thing that could happen.
Before we tell you the third thing that could happen, just think about those first 2 things. They dug their heels in, and you know what's going to prevent you from getting the listing tonight, or you've decided you don't want it right now or at all.
They've revealed the objection,
Yeah.
which you're going to have time to think about. That was number one.
For sure.
Or it's time to leave. That's number two.
And either one of those outcomes is a good outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
What's not a good outcome is to leave with a think it over.
Right.
So what could they say that could even be better than either of those two? And here it is. He'll turn to her, or she'll turn to him, or they'll turn to each other, and they'll say, well, I guess we're ready. Ooh. Boy, does that make the rest of this listing presentation easier. But if you never ask this question, you can never hear that. Do you get the point? If you never ask question 12, you'll never know that they're ready to get the ball rolling and make life easier for you.
What would it take for you to list with me tonight? So if they say, oh, we're ready, you can skip most of your listing presentation. You can be pretty direct. You know, you're going to fix that. Oh, paint over there. You know, you can be very, very direct. It's a really great gift. Doesn't happen all the time. Very, you know, not often. Most of the time, you're going to uncover the real objection that a weaker, lesser agent than you will not uncover till the end of your appointment, or till the middle of your appointment. You're about ready to close for it. You've already talked about price and all the marketing things. And then they say, well, you know, we're just going to interview another company. That's what happens on the average agent's appointment. They run into the objection right before they leave. With question number 12, you get a heads up. You run into the objection right now. Now, it's not when you solve it. Am I repeating myself? Look at me pounding this into your brain, man. I really want you to get this, because if you use this tool right, it revolutionizes your listing appointment.
And another way to ask it might be, you know, folks, when all is said and done tonight, let's pretend we put our heads together and come up with a price we both can live with. And you're convinced I am the best agent to help you go through with your plans. At that point, would there be anything preventing you from letting me handle things for you?
No, I guess not.
There you go. It's another way to ask the same question. And it's important, if you're out on the road, that you take good care of your vehicle. Not like this salesperson we know of whose car broke down out in the country. And what happened to him?
I didn't know what to do. It's the middle of the night. He's stuck and his car won't start. So he walks to the nearest farmhouse. And the farmer says, well, I'll let you sleep in the barn. So he gets out to the barn and there's bales of hay, and he gets himself settled and looks up, and the farmer's pointing a shotgun at him. Hey, what's going on here? And the farmer says, reach behind those hay bales and grab what's behind there. So the realtor does, and it's a bottle of moonshine. And the farmer says, take a drink or I'll pull the trigger. So the realtor takes a drink, and if you've tasted moonshine, you know, woo-wee. Then the farmer says, okay, now you hold the gun on me. And what's the point of that? You just never know where you're going to end up. So you better have a plan. Take care of your car, take care of your process, ask the questions before you get yourself into a situation you can't get out of. Fair enough?
We'll see you next time. Wait. Before we end recording, end recording.